I started out as my career in construction and then transitioned over to home inspections, and I think I was 7 when I started and doing that. So I've been at this for a little while.
Let me change the lights.
Sure, there we go. So what I'd like to cover today is I'd like to talk a little bit about what is the home inspection business. I'd like to get into who the home inspector is, what's our role in a real estate transaction, what does the home inspector do, possible paths to becoming a home inspector, as well as licensing in Ontario, and then finally I'll do an intro to the cost of getting into the business, at which point I'll hand it over to Michael to continue. All right? And so what are some of the characteristics of a good home inspector? Well, do you like to be with people, to communicate with people? All right, so this is a bit of a people business. So you want to be able to converse, explain what you're finding around the house. And one of the reasons I like home inspections is I hate sitting behind a desk. I like to get the opportunity to go out, again, to meet with people and new adventures every day. So if you're doing inspections, you're at a new property, a new building, meeting new people, and I always look at it as an adventure. So you get to see some pretty neat things out there, and then a lot of times, when you're doing the inspection, you kind of scratch your head and go, why did somebody do that? Anyway, like I said, it's exciting. I love it. So why home inspections? Well, the other advantage to this is you can be the boss. All right, so you have the opportunity. It is a scalable business, so you can start out as a single proprietor, and this is something that if you like, you can also scale it and bring on other inspectors to work for you. So you could operate this as a bit of a small business, and in the end, this is something that you can actually make a living at. So what is the role of a home inspector? Well, one of the ways I like to explain this is a home inspector is a general practitioner. And a good comparison is to the medical profession, your family doctor, who's a generalist. So you go to a family doctor, you say, well, I've got a problem with my knee, and so they'll say, okay, well, I think you should go seek further help. And so that's the same thing what we will do as home inspectors as well, is we're going through the house, we have a good knowledge of all the systems in the house, how all the systems work together or interrelate within the house, but we may come across something that, you know what, I'm not an expert when it comes to a heating system. There is a problem here, do recommend that you get a heating contractor to come and do the inspection. Okay, so again, we are a general practitioner. One of the other terms that I like to use is a home inspector is an expert in existing housing stock. And what that means is that a trade person or the municipal building inspector, their focus is on new construction. All right, so when the code changes or how to build things changes, that's what the municipal inspector is focusing on, or is that what the trades are focusing on? Can they tell us, are they knowledgeable in how houses were built or how things were done 20 years ago, 50 years ago? Probably not. All right, so this is something that we're able to look at and provide a service and a consultation. Again, another good skill for a home inspector is you have developed kind of an Inspector Clouseau or detective type of skills. So I always say when I'm going through the house, I'm doing a little bit of CSI work. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's the scene of the crime here? What's going on with this particular house? So again, as a municipal building inspector, they're basically looking at this and saying, well, does this conform with the code? Whereas we're going to come through and say, well, okay, I do see that is an issue, but that has other relationships and so on. And so again, as I said, it's a bit of detective work. Okay. Once again, in various codes, there's no requirement to go, if the code evolves, if the code changes, there's no reason or no requirement to go back and change things. So for example, the heights of railings have changed in houses over the years. Well, and if you go into an older house, sometimes you'll find the railing, well, it's just above your knee. Yeah, there's a safety issue there, but that's what the standard was 50 years ago or 80 years ago when the house was built. Is there a requirement to change that? No. You can't make that argument. Is it worthwhile to change that from a safety point of view? Perhaps yes. because people had become taller over the years, and so again, guards or railings are something that have changed for safety reasons. The other skill that we have is looking at the house as a system. All right, so a lot of times a tradesperson is going to say that, well, I've been an electrician for 40 years. What are you going to know about the house? Okay, you know what? The electrician is the expert when it comes to electrical items, and I will always defer to them. But what is their knowledge when it comes to heating systems? What is their knowledge when it comes to other interrelated systems within the house? So, a good example might be somebody has mold in the house. Well, mold is a result of water. So the question is, where did the water come from? Was it a roof leak? Well, so a homeowner might call out a roofer. Roofer's going to go up and say, yeah, you know what? You need a new roof. They replace the roof. Well, the mold didn't go away. Well, okay, must be a plumbing leak. So they'll call out a plumber, and the plumber charges a fortune to do changes in the plumbing system.
Or just ventilation.
Or, exactly. The point may have been it's a ventilation issue, or it may have been an insulation issue.
I've argued.
All right, so far we've covered considering the home inspection business, who the home inspector is. What I'd like to talk about is what our role is and how we fit into this, okay? So in the normal world, in a real estate transaction, a buyer has found a house, they've negotiated a price in the contract for purchase of sale, they have negotiated perhaps conditions, financing, and a home inspection. Well, the home inspection, that's where we come in. And so our role is to be an impartial advisor. All right, so we're not going to come into the house, we're not favoring the seller, we're not favoring the buyer. We're here, one of the terms we sometimes use is we're here to represent the house, to explain what's going on in the house. And so what we're going to do is again, go through the house top to bottom. Now, one of the other things is a home inspection is visual in nature. And so in the environment of a real estate transaction, those buyers do not own the house yet. The current homeowner, the seller, has given them permission. Yes, you can come into the house, you can go through my house, but nowhere did they say, oh yes, you can do destructive testing. So unlike those guys that stand on TV and said the home inspector should have seen it and they should have torn the wall out, that's not the reality that we work in. Okay, so absolutely, yeah, had somebody been able to tear this wall open, you'd absolutely be able to see that there was mold behind the wall. But a trained home inspector will know to look at the clues around the house, around this area here, and may be able to give an educated opinion and say, you know what, something's wrong here, and further investigation is needed. Okay, so in the transaction, our role is the impartial advisor, and we're performing a visual inspection. Sorry, was it David?
Yes.
It was David up front earlier here. Before we started, I was having a conversation with him. And the question was, well, what portion of the market may be attributed to pre-purchase inspections? And just off the top of my head, I would say that perhaps, the average inspector, 2/3 of their business is what I just described, that pre-purchase scenario. So somebody's put in the offer to purchase a house and they're looking for a skilled person to come in and advise them on what it is that they're buying or getting into. Other services that we can provide are doing an inspection for the seller. Some companies call that a pre-listing inspection. So here's the opportunity again to go through the house before the house goes on the market and provide a report, advise the seller, well, here's what the things are around the house. Some sellers may want to take that opportunity to do repairs, and so they've got a better house, they're able to ask a lot more for it. Perhaps the seller can use that report as a sales tool. And in those scenarios, I've heard real estate agents use the term that, well, here's the report and condition of the house, and the house has been priced accordingly. So that the buyer doesn't necessarily need to get an inspection. They can if they wish, but they don't need to get an inspection after the transaction or after they've negotiated on the price. But they know ahead of time that yes, the furnace is 30 years of age and it needs to be replaced right away. Okay, so there's a tactical advantage when it comes to selling in certain markets to do that. Other things that we can do is, a lot of inspectors will do, just like Dave, is just to, we can talk about home maintenance or renovation inspections. So sometimes, again, we have a good knowledge of the house and the systems and so on, and if you've got a background in construction, even better, you can leverage that. But we may come in and, again, a lot of the younger generation, some of the older generation, they don't know how houses are put together and they don't know how to maintain the houses. So we can provide a service where we come in, go through the house, here's the condition of the house, and oh, by the way, here's what you need to do to maintain your investment. Okay, so there's another opportunity. I was saying earlier is our skill set as a home inspector is suited to do energy audits. And so a couple years ago, the federal and provincial governments had incentive programs for people to upgrade insulation, furnaces, things like that. And so a lot of home inspectors were doing both inspections and energy audits. So there was a little additional training required, how to use the software, what is the government bureaucracy, how to file all the details. But again, that was another opportunity. And there are others as well. What's your question?
We looked at a house in Ottawa, born and raised here, but we worked there for a while. And the family had a pre-listing inspection. And it was nice to see, because they didn't even realize, but below their carpeting in their basement was asbestos tiles.
Yep.
They didn't even know they had them in the house. So it was nice to see that, and we just felt that's great knowledge to have.
Oh, absolutely.
From your inspector. That was good. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So that covers the role and how we fit into the real estate transaction. So what does an inspector actually do on site? So typical inspection is about 2.5, maybe 3 hours, depending on the house, the issues and complexity questions, things like that. And then after that, there is what we call reporting time, or to make sure you document and provide a thorough report. The inspector is going through the house top to bottom and inside and out. So what the inspector is going to do is take a look at the roof, look at the exterior, evaluate structure, look at things such as plumbing, the heating, the electrical, air conditioning system. And one of the things we like to encourage is that the home buyer attend the inspection, and because this is a bit of a home buyer seminar. On-site tools that we use, well, like the CSI people on TV, we're going to go around with flashlights. Other things we use are ladders. Getting into crawl space or attic areas, you want to use a respirator. We're using simple tools such as screwdrivers or circuit testers or things like that. From a safety point of view, well, again, you are climbing ladders, you want to tie the ladder off, make sure that you're safe in that sense. We are getting into electrical services, so again, we want to have the appropriate safety gear on, things like that. So we're not using anything too complicated. A lot of this stuff can fit into one duffel bag or one tool bag, and you can bring that, carry it in your car and bring it to your site. From a physical point of view, you want to be able to you're comfortable standing, you're comfortable walking, because this isn't something that you're going to be able to do sitting behind a desk. So you need to be able to get out. You want to be able. You're going to have to work with ladders. So you're going to be. Are you strong enough or comfortable in moving a ladder around, whether it's to get up into an attic area or to get up to at least the edge of the roof, if not necessarily walking on the roof. So again. This isn't something that you can necessarily do sitting in your car, okay? Although some try, but you're not doing a good job at that. And then physically, you're gonna have to at least get either into the entrance of a crawl space or an attic area, if not sometimes get into those various spaces to do a little bit of investigation, okay? So, like I said, there is a little bit of physical work for it, but the trade-off is that it's healthier than sitting on the couch or behind a desk. Okay. So from an inspection protocol point of view, we have in the business or in the profession, we have something called the standards of practice. And so a lot of time people's expectations of what a home inspection is, it tends to be a little bit higher from what it is we can actually do. Some of that will be blamed on the sensationalism of the guys on TV and so on. So people think that, well, yes, we're going to be able to see behind walls, we're going to open up the walls, we're going to be able to provide a lifetime guarantee on everything we see and say. It's not quite the reality, as I said a little bit earlier. So again, the standards of practice dictate, or they lay out, they set a minimum standard saying, this is what we're going to inspect, this is what we're going to be reporting on, so at least there's an understanding. So this is set out ahead of time. And as I said earlier, I always compare it to what we're doing as a home inspector. This is a one-on-one homeowner seminar. All right. So rather than sitting in a classroom or watching it on TV, they're actually interactive. You're walking them around the house and describing their house and providing maintenance suggestions. Paths to becoming a home inspector. All right. Well, there are a number of ways that you can go about doing this. You can take courses through the college, the local community college, and they're available all across the province. You can go through a franchise system, and so many of the franchises provide training, and they have training facilities that'll bring you from no knowledge of home inspections just to the ability to be able to practice, or you may want to try and do nothing. So just to go into that a little bit further is, so yes, at the moment here in Ontario, there's no regulations, no laws that says you can't, or you can call you can't call yourself a home inspector without any prior knowledge or experience. So yes, somebody could print up a business card and call themselves a home inspector, but again, from a statistical point of view, they're not going to be in business very long. 90% of people who get into this without any prior knowledge or training, etc., are out of the business in 1 year or less. All right, not serving the client as well, so not serving the buyer. And I like to, again, let's go back to the medical profession as an example. Are you going to do brain surgery without some prior instructions? Probably not. So why do you want to go out and provide a home inspection service without getting some kind of training and knowledge in that? As I said, other opportunities are going through the college or going through the franchise system. And so from a certification point of view, if you're going through the franchises, they will have their certification, which is recognized. Through the colleges, you can end up with a college certificate in a home inspection program. Okay, that's not bad. Here in the province of Ontario, we have something called a registered home inspector, which is kind of someone who's done their education, done their practical training, and is competent in performing a home inspection. And I'll come back to that when I talk about licensing in Ontario. So as I said just a little bit a moment ago, is that there's no requirement to do anything. You can just try and start up a home inspection business with no prior training. So there's no mandatory requirements. Although, since 1994, the Ontario Association of Home Inspectors has been a self-governing body. In '94, the provincial government passed an act, the OHI Act, which gives this association the power to set accreditation, education requirements, and also provides discipline. And so, again, government's been fairly happy with that, and no mandatory requirement to join, but those that are looking to do a serious, honest job and be at the business for a while do consider getting into that. From a licensing point of view, well, 34 jurisdictions across North America have introduced licensing. So this is south of the border and here north of the border. And so here north of the border, or in what we call Canada, British Columbia introduced home inspection licensing in 2009. Alberta brought it in 2011. Quebec sounds like they're very close in providing or bringing in legislation or licensing, some kind of licensing for home inspection. And here in Ontario, where are we now? Yeah, just over a year ago, the provincial government initiated consultations in preparation for licensing for home inspections. I'm going to go to the BC model first. So when the British Columbia government brought in home inspection licensing, what they did is that there were a couple professional associations in the province. So there was architectural technologists, there was the Home Inspection Association, there was another trade group that was out there as well. And so the BC government said, okay, well, we'll let you guys look after the accreditation, the certification, and if they pass your system, then we'll grant them the license. Well, what the BC government has realized over the last couple of years is that it is not working. In a study that they just published, the provincial government published in British Columbia, is that 54% of consumer respondents to the survey said they were unhappy with the home inspection. There's other factors that go into it, but a lot of it had to do with that there was a disparity in accreditation. There wasn't a single set of standards of practice, and again, there was no central complaint resolution process. So no, it's not working very well. And so they're now looking at changing everything in British Columbia. Ontario looked at that and said, you know what, we're not going to do it the way they've done it in BC and Alberta and in even some of the states south of the border. What Ontario has said they want to do is they want to set one set of standards, one registration body, and also maintain one discipline body. So if there are any complaints, it's better able to serve the consumer. This all falls under the Ministry, now they're calling this, Ministry of Government and Consumer Services. They keep changing the name every couple of years, that's who they are at the moment. And then from a progression point of view, well, we just went through a provincial election. Prior to the election, there were 258 bills on the agenda that may evolve into legislation. Of that, 143 have survived. Okay, so a lot of the other stuff was private members' bills or little things that have disappeared with the dissolution of government. Now we've got a new government, and the home inspector's bill or legislation is still a possibility. When, how soon, details like that, don't know yet. They still haven't set their agenda, and so we're waiting to see it, but it's still very possible that this is something that's going to come about. So again, if you're looking to get in the home inspection business, then perhaps considering education through a college, education through a franchise system, something like that would better serve you than doing nothing. Finally, I just want to touch on the cost of doing business, and again, this is just a little bit of an introduction into it. So some of the things to consider when you're going to become a home inspector or get into this profession is, well, there is a little bit of a cost associated with education and training. And again, the various programs can bring you from having no knowledge of houses and construction to a competent inspector. And if you do start out with a trades background or construction background, when your journey is a little bit shorter, a little bit easier. Okay, so for those of you that have that background, it's an advantage. Accreditation-wise, again, something to think about. You want to see that you perhaps earn a registered home inspector designation or whatever happens to be the one that's going to come down the line from the government in the future. Okay, so there's a little bit of investment required there. Some of the other costs to think about is general liability. And so if you're going to operate a business where you're dealing with customers or customers are coming into your facility, well, you're going to have this type of insurance. My example here is what happens if you drop your ladder on that Mercedes. Well, guess what? Your general liability insurance is going to cover that. Now, as a home inspector, like a medical practitioner or even lawyers themselves, architects, engineers, we carry something called errors and omissions insurance. Okay? So there may be a time when you miss something. We're all human. Try not to, with good training and procedures, chances are you're not going to miss things, but what if? Okay? So, my example here is, well, what happens if you didn't comment on that missing hand railing along the stairs? And what if somebody slips and falls down the stairs? Ooh, well, that could be a pricey claim. Well, thank goodness you've got your professional insurance that will help protect you. Okay, so again, that's another cost of doing business. You're going to be using your vehicle, you're going to be getting around. Well, again, vehicle insurance is another thing you need. And I just want to end off with saying is, again, the nice thing about the home inspection profession, and one of the things I like about this, is that I can be the boss. I can do all by myself if I want, or if I want, I can scale it up and I can just sit in the office, or I can do the marketing and I can hire professional and competent inspectors to work for me. So, scalable. David?
Ulrich, I'm sure all of us know that all of those expenses are also income tax deductible.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Michael's going to get into more details, but if it's a home, sorry, I don't want to step on your toes, but if it's a home-based business, you can write off a portion of your home. I'm not a tax accountant, but my understanding is, yes, you can write off a portion of your home. The shareholders meeting in Las Vegas, you can write a portion of that off. You and your wife going down there for vacation. I'm being recorded. It is for business purposes. But anyway, but yes, thank you. Good example. Any other questions?
We'll have more time for questions. We'll save time for questions at the end.
Okay.
I don't know if people need to leave.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stick around, so anything you want to ask me, I'd be happy to help you out with. And at this point, Tag, I'm going to hand it over to Michael.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Ulrich. So that was a general, very good, Ulrich, presentation of the industry in general and the more technical part of it, the more nuts and bolts of actually doing the inspections. But I want you to imagine this. You've done your certification. You have your tools. You have your insurances in place. You have your business cards. Maybe you had a friend made you a website. And you're so excited, right? You're ready to go. And then you're waiting for your phone to ring. And then the next day you're at your home office desk and you're still waiting for your phone to ring. And then the third day. So something to consider, and it may dawn on someone at that point, is, oh, this is a business. Maybe I should have made a business plan. Maybe I should have taken the bigger view here than just the technical part of it. So there's so many things to think about in terms of the business, and I'm just going to go over a few of them here. But for example, Ulrich mentioned the insurances you need. Your most expensive item in this business on an ongoing basis is your errors and omissions insurance. Well, a lot of people don't know there's many different companies that offer errors and omissions insurance. Not only that, there are different types of insurance. There's cap-based errors and omission, or they're individual. These are some things to think about. And you never, ever want to operate a home inspection business without that errors and omissions. It could be devastating if you didn't have it. What if you get in a legal bind? Most home inspectors in their first few years, you are going to make a few mistakes. You are going to miss some things. That's human. That's natural. So what do you do if you get in a bind? What steps do you follow to minimize the legal risk? If you decide to get employees, if your business is growing, are you going to hire them as employees, or are you going to hire them as self-contractors? If you do a self-contractor, what kind of forms do you need? Are you going to be wise enough to put a non-compete clause in there so that guy that you've trained now doesn't turn around and leave and start competing against you? In terms of marketing your business, are you going to do TV advertisements, radio? How should I market? It's very important to plan in advance and know. And then what type of support network do you have? If you happen to get called to inspect one of those houses that Ulrich showed in his PowerPoint, either the really old one or that really curved one, you may have no idea. So what kind of support, who can you call to get help so you can get through that inspection? Then, in terms of your bottom line, when you do a home inspection, what additional services can you add on, optional? So possibly, I'm going to just make up some numbers here. Instead of averaging $400 for an inspection, maybe you can average $550. What kind of additional services can you offer? So there's so many questions here. This is where one may start to think about a franchised system. And why would one think about a franchise system? I think the first point is what Ulrich brought up is 90% of independents fail. And it's very unfortunate. They've gone through the course, they're ready to go. But why do 90% of the independents fail? Part of the reason is, Ulrich mentioned it. In Ontario, anyone can call themselves a home inspector. So there have been so many people go out, not even particularly with the accreditations and the training. But what's happened, and certainly not in all cases, I want to say there are very good independent home inspectors out there, but what happens is the real estate agents, and that's your number one source of referrals, have seen so many inspectors come and go. If John Doe Inspection Services approaches them and wants to do a presentation or wants to shake their hand, they're often like to say thank you for your business card, and they leave and it goes in the garbage. It's just, for example, when you go to Tim Hortons, you want your double-double and you know what you're going to get. A real estate agent, if they refer someone, they want someone to come do a professional job, be courteous, know how to communicate, do their job, and leave. So many of these independents didn't do that, and so there's a bit of a stigma unless they are established and were professional from day one. So 90% our research shows are failing. In a franchise system, I don't know other companies, but ours, 93% of the franchisees succeed. So that's just a huge 90% failure versus 93% success rate. So in short, you would not have, if you go with a franchise system, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already been thought out for you. One of the best parts of a franchise system is you have a business coach who, from the very get-go, presents you, for example, with a roadmap. You know, should you get incorporated? Well, he'll say, yeah, go up here, instead of turning right, no, turn left, do it this way. What about marketing? You know, John Doe may think, oh, I'm going to do TV advertising. That's how I'm going to get my market share. And it's going to spend a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money on the TV. By the way, don't advertise on TV for home inspection. It's not the way to go. It's definitely not the way to go. So your business coach in this roadmap they present to you is going to say, go up here and turn right this time. Do it this way. Once again, so you don't waste your effort and your time and your money spinning your wheels. If you're going to take this profession on, you want to get up and running as soon as possible. That's where a franchise system can help. The training is included with the franchise fee in a franchised system, be it ours or someone else's. Not only training, but I want you to imagine this. Let's say John Doe is waiting for his, I joked, he's wrapping his fingers on the table waiting for his first phone call, and 4 days later he gets one. He's got a real live call, and he's got real live clients, and there's going to be the real estate agent there, and there's going to be the buyer, the clients, and maybe that night he starts, you know, he's inspected his friend's house, so he's done it once. He's kind of familiar with the software and the tablet he has, but then he gets there and there's real people, and all of a sudden you're nervous, and that would be natural. It's human to be nervous until you're used to a process. So another benefit of a franchise system is if you're surrounded by franchisees in the community, you can go out and you can do 5, 10, or 15 live inspections, as many as you need, until your confidence level is where it needs to be. Your confidence level needs to be high before you start doing live marketing. Because that very first call, the clients may be a little bit naive, but the real estate agent isn't. When you meet Sally from Century 21, hi Sally, I'm John. I'm going to be your inspector today. I know your time is valuable. We're going to get started right away. Agents like to hear words like that. You turn to your clients. Nice to meet you. We have some paperwork to fill out. I want to let you know I arrived here early. I've already done the roof and the external. As soon as we finish the paperwork, I'm going to give a walk around. You just present yourself. You know what you're doing. You're professional. You've had the proper training. So from the very first inspection, that Sally is, wow, okay, this is a real one, and she's relaxing. And she's so happy that you did the half hour already, and you're not going to cost her an extra half hour per day. Because with the TREB, or the Toronto Real Estate Board, the real estate agent is required to be present, and I'm pretty sure the same thing would be true for the Niagara Board. The inspectors, the real estate agents have to be there during the inspection. So you start with confidence, and then in terms of communication, I like to tell this story. Imagine a very first-time home buyers, people who've bought a few houses. This wouldn't necessarily pertain, but let's say Beth and Sam are buying a house. John Doe is doing the inspection. Sally, the real estate agent, is there. So he's going around the exterior with the walkthrough, and he says, Beth and Sally, he's like, I want you to look at this. Oh my God, he says, there's a hairline crack in the foundation. I'm putting this in the report. It could get worse. You better watch it. All of a sudden, you've introduced fear into the equation. And there's a very good chance with new first-time home buyers, they may completely back out of the deal. Or you can say, I have noted there is a hairline crack in the foundation. It may need future monitoring. However, 95% of all new homes, even new constructions, have hairline cracks in the foundation. If you word it that way, you're not making a mountain out of a molehill. If you make a mountain out of a molehill, that Sally is never going to refer you another business. Now, at the same time, of course, it's your fiduciary responsibility. If there's a major issue, a major crack in that foundation, you absolutely are going to tell, you're going to point that out, and you might really say, oh my God, look at this, right? But the real estate agent's not going to hold that against you. It's not your fault that the home has a major defect. So communication, most franchise systems will spend a few days during the training seminar. It's not just about training on how to remove the casing of an electrical panel so you can see if there's double taps. There's so much training in this business just on the business, just on communication. And not only communication, risk management, I mentioned earlier. If you make a mistake and miss something, and they're calling up a major complaint, most franchise systems will have a very thick binder. It's called an operation manual. There should be a whole chapter on there on risk management. From the moment you get the complaint, exactly what do you do? What do you do so you can do what it takes so it doesn't become a lawsuit? Once again, just examples. Phone script. You will get a certain amount of people just calling shoppers looking for price. John Doe's inspection service, and they say, how much do you charge for an inspection? You say $349, they say thanks, bye. Well, a franchise system will have a phone script that's been perfected over years and decades in certain cases that you just follow. Just memorize it. Once again, the roadmap, when the phone rings, you turn this way on the map, and these are the things you say. Just a little hint here, you never mention the price first. You start asking questions to engage them. So I wanted to end, I think, so I've mentioned benefits of going with the franchise system versus independent. And I want to be clear again and say some independents do succeed and are very good. It's absolutely possible. It's more challenging. And the biggest reason, I save for last, the biggest reason in the beginning I gave the example of John waiting for his phone to ring and it's not ringing. That's the most common problem. That's the biggest reason most new people can't get off the ground. They can't get the business. So what does that come down to is marketing. So a franchise system should have a system that's been developed for decades and knows all the tricks of how to get you forefront in front of the real estate agents, to train you how you can meet as many agents as you can, and not just meet them personally, but then have reinforcements coming in, such as fresh marketing material every single month. What do most inspectors do? Actually, even a lot of franchise companies do this. You get your business cards, you get a trifold brochure. It goes in a plexiglass stand that they put, if you can get the broker's permission, they'll allow you to display that. So you're excited, you finally got it, and he goes back and says, no, it's back in the back. Then you go back and sure, and there's 9 different companies back there, and they're all collecting dust, and the agents really don't even look at them. That's traditional marketing for independents and some franchise companies. You need to have fresh material at least once a month going to those agents in those offices. So you're in and out, that's part of your business. It's not just doing inspections. Especially in the beginning, a big part of this business is going to those offices and forging those relationships and following the method that's been developed in the franchise system. Go from point A, then B, then, and hopefully the franchise system has someone like experienced as Ulrich, as you can see with his knowledge today, that as a new franchisee, hopefully the system has someone like Ulrich that you have in your back pocket, so to speak. He's there coaching you from day one all the way through, along with, of course, all of the other support staff. So, anyway, that was, yes, please.
Sorry, just wanted, sitting at the back of the room listening to what Michael was saying and can't help but think back to when I started. As I said in the beginning, I started out from a construction background. And so what I didn't at that point I thought, I can do everything. I can do my bookkeeping, I can do my selling, I can do everything. And when I started out for the first year, for a year and a half, I struggled to do it all. And then I ended up joining a larger company where I was able to complete my training. I had a support network of other inspectors that, again, there's going to be a time when you're on site and it's like, I'm looking at something I'm not sure, or want to bounce something off. So you've got a network of other colleagues. Again, in the franchise system, you can call any one of the other franchise inspectors and say, hey, Ray, I'm looking at something. What do what would you say in this case, or what is your opinion? So a wonderful support network. And just in my personal case, over the years, I did additional reading. I started taking courses in business, and I realized that, you know what? I'm a technician. That's where my strength is, which is in doing the inspections. I'm going to hire somebody to do my bookkeeping. I'm going to hire somebody or buy into a system to do the marketing. And that way I can focus on what I'm good at. Somebody else can focus on producing my monthly cards that go out, or my printing, or my brochures, or keep my website up to date. And again, I think that's the difference between an independent who thinks they can do everything to somebody who's going to buy into a system where a lot of it's being done on a larger scale and for you. Sorry. I had to say that. It was just,
Very important.
Yeah, it's really important. So that really ends our presentation. Obviously, we'll have time if you question and answers is good. It's a life-changing decision if you're going to buy a franchise and bank on a new career.